Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to take a look at Chapter 6-7, where we are going to solve problems that can be modeled by quadratic equations. This is problem solving. All of your favorite. So let's start with refreshing with similar problems that we've used before, where we solve them using linear equations. Find three consecutive integers whose sum is 72. If you recall, a consecutive integer is, for example, 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 99, 100, 101. So if we're finding three consecutive integers, we used x plus x plus 1 plus x plus 2 to represent the three different integers. X is your first integer, x plus 1 is your second integer, and x plus 2 is your third. I hope this is ringing a bell. Now if we add those all up, the sum is 72. Then we would solve that equation to figure out the three consecutive integers. Another common problem that we looked at was one with the perimeter of a rectangle. Remember, the perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. And it says that the perimeter is 18. The length is twice as long as the width. And we're supposed to find the width. So we took that L and we substituted in 2W. And we solved an equation that looked like 18 equals 2 times 2W plus 2W. And these equations should be fairly simple for you to solve, just going backwards through PEMDAS. Now, the equations that we're going to look at today are not linear. They're quadratic. They have an exponent of 2. And that's why they're in this chapter, and how we're going to solve them is by factoring. So looking at the first example, it says the length of a rectangular garden is 5 feet more than its width. The area of the garden is 176 square feet. Find the length and the width of the garden. So we're going to let x equal the width. And we'll let the length equal 5 feet more than its width. 5 feet more than its width. The area, remember, is length times width, and in this case we're dealing with 176 square feet. So that means we've got 176 equals x times 5 plus x. Now, to solve this equation, we've got our steps for solving quadratics, which are that it equals 0, having a little trouble with my hand here, I'm bumping stuff. Alright, so step 1 is that it equals 0. Step 2, that it is A times B. Step 3, the zero product property. Step 4, solve. Step 5, check. Just a quick rough draft there of what we need to do. So does this equal 0? No, it does not. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to distribute out that x first. So we're going to get 176 equals 5x plus x squared. Now I can subtract 176 from both sides. It gives me 0 equals, I'm going to put it in order so it's nice, neat, and pretty, minus 176. Alright, now we need to factor this. So we're looking for factors of 176 that add up to 5. To save time, I've made a list of different factors, and what I notice is, since it's factors of negative 176 that add up to a positive 5, this one right here is going to work for me as long as the 16 is negative. So when I write out my factors, it's 0 equals x plus 11 times x minus 16. Now I have it factored, so I'm going to do the zero product property, either x plus 11 equals 0 or x minus 16 equals 0. So x equals negative 11 or x equals 16. Let's think about that for a minute here. Go back to the question. It says to find the length and the width of the garden. And remember, we said that x is the width. Would it make sense for the width of the garden to be negative? No, it would make 0 sense. So the only possibility there is that the width is 16. And if the width is 16, add 5, the length is 21. Pretty easy, right? Here's our consecutive integer problem. It says the product of two consecutive positive integers is 132. Find the two integers. So we're going to let x equal the first integer, and x plus 1 will be the second integer. So if it says that the product of two consecutive integers, so that's the product, equals 132. Again, doing the same steps, we want this to be equal to 0 first, so I'm going to distribute. Then I'm going to move the 132 to the other side so that it's equal to 0. And now I need to factor. So I'm looking for factors of negative 132 that add up to 1. Okay, so again, I paused the video to quickly find some factors, and it looks like 11 times 12 is going to work with the 11 being negative. So when we factor this, we get x minus 11 times x plus 12 equals 0. So now we can do the zero product property. X minus 11 equals 0, or x plus 12 equals 0. So either x equals 11 or x equals negative 12. Go back to the question. It said positive integers. So guess which one's not going to work? So the first integer is 11 and the second integer is 12. Last example, ladies and gentlemen. It says an object is thrown upward from the top of a 128-foot building with an initial velocity of 112 feet per second. The height h of the object after t seconds is given by the quadratic equation, messy, nasty, awful equation. When will the object hit the ground? So, I want you to picture the height. An object is thrown upward from the top of a building. So this is our building. The object is thrown upward and it hits the ground. We're trying to figure out when it hits the ground. And so the ground is our x-axis. It's where y equals 0. Okay, so taking a look, you've got the height h. So we want the height to be 0. And we'll solve for t. T will give us the amount of time when it will hit the ground. So we've got 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 112t plus 128. First question, ladies and gentlemen, GCF. In this case, there is a GCF. The GCF is 16. And in fact, because the first one is a negative, let's get rid of that ugly negative in the front. So let's divide everything by a negative, oh, let me use a different color. Divided by a negative 16. So we'll get 0 equals, so the negative 16 goes on the outside. That gives us t squared minus 112 divided by 16 is 7. And 128 divided by 16 is 8. Now we can factor the inside there. So we're looking for factors of negative 8 that add up to negative 7. That's going to give us 1 times negative 8. So that gives us 0 equals negative 16 t plus 1 t plus minus 8. Alright, now when we do the zero product property, this part here is useless. So zero product property, t plus 1 equals 0, or t minus 8 equals 0. So t could be negative 1 or t could be positive 8. Now let's think, what's going to make sense? We're talking about seconds, time. Would negative seconds make sense? It would not. So t is 8 seconds. When they throw that ball up in the air, after 8 seconds is when it's going to hit the ground. Now, what does that negative 1 mean? If we go backwards in time and we fall backwards to the ground, which makes 0 sense, it would be negative 1 or 1 second to be to that point. But that's beside the point. It takes 8 seconds for the ball to hit the ground. So, why don't you give some practice to that? Remember to always show your work.